All right, there you go. All right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me. You guys seen the video?
Yes.
Yeah? I look good in it, right? So my name is Israel Vargas, and right now I'm the operations manager for a nonprofit organization called Connections for the Homeless. I've been doing homeless prevention for the past 16, 17 years. That's been my passion because at one point I myself was homeless just for 3 months, but enough to really get me into deep trouble, as you've seen in the video. That was one of the components that added up to me getting in trouble and spending 12 years away. How old are you? 15. 12 of those years I was away, presumably, right? Imagine missing out on spring break. Imagine missing out on studying abroad. Those ages that are very crucial from the 20s to the 28s, where you're supposed to be going to college and learning about life on your own and having all that freedom. I didn't have that. Instead, during that time, all the way to the age of 32, I was told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. They told me when to go to the bathroom, they told me when to eat, they told me when to go to the yard, when to go work, when to go to school. Yes, I did go to school in there. I got 2 associate's degrees. Some of that time was very positive for me because I was able to really start learning about myself, looking into myself as to how did I get there and what was I going to do with my life. And then here you go, the picture right here. And it's very important that we understand that there are so many factors involved in growing up that can lead to so many outcomes that we don't know about. Remember that I wasn't the aggressor in that case, but I was just there, and just by being there, I ended up paying dearly for it, right? Even whether I knew or not, I mean, that is what it is, the law in the United States. Should I gotten a break? Probably not. Was it good that I ended up in there? Well, it helped me out greatly, right? Because I could have been dead, or I could have been deep into drugs, or I could have been doing life in prison for that matter. I got some people in there that I knew from when I was out here back in the days that are doing life, and they never coming out, never. So imagine you have to rely on every weekend to get a visit from a family member, waiting for the mail to come, to expecting a letter from a loved one. But you're in a whole different world with a whole bunch of people who have all kinds of crazy thoughts in their mind, and you're there on survival mode. I believe that we enter into survival mode not when we find ourselves in a difficult situation, but early on in life, like around your age. I say 11, ages 10 to 12 are very crucial because you're going into your teens. And so you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to look for being independent, individuality, and a lot of the information that comes to you may be distorted, and you may not be able to process it in a way where it can be helpful for you in your transition into adulthood. So it's very important to be aware of yourself at all times. And that's what happened when I went in there. I became aware of myself, of who I am. I was telling the class prior to this that we often, in back in the days, we used to be very proud of our last names. We used to call the Gonzaleses and the Perez and all that stuff, the Vargas. Nowadays, the family dynamic has broken down to so extent that we're not looking at each other as a clan, but we're looking at ourselves as individuals without realizing that we need this group of people, this support group, this family to help us learn what we need to learn. And we, like my son says, we know it all, right? I know everything. My son knows everything. Every time I tell him something, I know that. No, you don't know, because then why did you do that if you knew, right? How many of you have gone through that? How many of you have told your parents, I know? Come on now, yeah, I know. Oh. So it's very important that we understand that, yes, you may know some things, but not all of it. See, information comes to you and you process it, but it may not be complete. And so you're making decisions on half the information that you're supposed to. For example, again, I was there, And I'm thinking to myself, well, I didn't do the shooting, so I should not get locked up. I don't care. But yeah, I got locked up. I only knew half the information. I didn't know that being there makes you an accessory to the case, right? So you could be hanging with somebody, they do something, you don't even have to know that they did it. You walk into a store with a friend, their friend steals, you're with him or her, the camera sees you, they're putting both of you in a small, cold room to call your parents because you're hanging together. I tell my son all the time, be aware of your surroundings and who you're with, because whatever they do is going to affect you if it's negative. Always, always will be the case. And he's learning it little by little. But it's very important that we understand this because all of these variables come together into the life of possibly rich and the famous or homeless. As I said, I've been doing homeless prevention for 16 years. I ran a shelter for homeless men, women, and children. I had 40 beds for men in one program. We fed them 3 times a day, helped them look for jobs, helped them look for apartments, and we have 55 beds for women and children and help them do the same. We have babies being born. Imagine being homeless, female, with a baby or pregnant, and you go to a shelter and you have to go to a hospital and give birth and come back to the shelter because you don't have a place to go to. You don't have nowhere, you don't have no family support. You don't have anything. That's the most sad thing I've ever experienced in my life, to be able to see something like that. And guess what? 99% of the times in which a person becomes homeless is because they do not have an adequate education. So they cannot get a good job to be able to fend for themselves. Is the bottom line. See, at this age, we're not thinking about all of the things that it takes to be able to maintain a household. But it's very important that you understand the correlation between education and the cost of living, because you're going to become an adult and you're going to have to fend for yourselves. And if you don't know how to do it, you may come into some trouble. Bad debt, probably moving from one place to another one because you cannot afford one or you cannot pay the other one's rent. All of this is a fact of life that you guys are gonna have to you guys are gonna have to deal with, and so I'm here to try to present you with some evidence so that you can make better decisions in the future. Not that you're not making them now, but again, remember, half information, whole information, you're getting the whole information right. A lot of our population that faces homelessness also exhibit some sort of mental health condition. And a mental health condition doesn't necessarily mean somebody's crazy or anything like that. They're gonna kill somebody, anything like that. It could be so subtle that not even they know that they have the mental health condition. And the mental health condition could have been caused by a trauma from childhood. And the trauma doesn't have to be something heinous, like some major sexual abuse or something like that. It could be something as simple as the feeling of abandonment because you're not getting enough communication in here from your guide, from your parents. So that makes you isolated. That can possibly build depression, which affects your daily life. And you don't even know it. I got people that are homeless right now that I know they're out of their mind, and I tell them, can we go see a counselor? It's gonna help you understand how to navigate society. And the first thing they tell me is, I'm not crazy. You're not crazy. You were just walking naked outside. How are you not crazy? You see what I'm saying? You were talking to yourself for about 5 minutes. How are you not crazy? I don't say it like that, but this is what I'm thinking, right? So I cannot push them to go get counseling, but I can only encourage them because that's the way the system works. You don't force them into doing anything. You encourage them, and if they do it, fine. If they don't, then you got to continue to deal with them. That's just the way the system works. But guess what? At the age of 19, 20, 21, you eventually are going to be moving out. I could probably go to a college dorm. A lot of us who have been in low-income families will probably live at home, probably try to get a job and get an apartment. And get an apartment being on your own is the greatest thing ever, right? I did not have that opportunity until I was 32 years old. I did not have my first car until I was 32 years old. I didn't even have a driver's license until I was 32 years old. But that's the time I got out of prison. So I didn't get to have none of that prior to that because I was very young and I wasn't in the mindset. So you go out there and get an apartment, and What's the average cost of a studio? Anybody knows? No, we don't know because like my son says, I'm too young to be talking about stuff like that. He always tells me that when I try to tell him about the facts of life. I'm too young for that. Wait till I get older. So right now, on average out there, if you're gonna go get a studio, and a studio, mind you, is, say, just a room and a bathroom on the side. Just a room and a bathroom on the side. It might have a kitchenette with a stove there, but it's just 4 walls and a small room for the bathroom. That's a studio. And there's some really nice ones out there, especially going towards downtown. But those are gonna cost you an arm and a leg. But on average, the studio is gonna be about $700. $700 a month for a roof over your head. Now picture this: 4 walls, you gotta pay $700. But having that 4 walls, you gotta have stuff in there, right? Furniture, that's gonna cost money. The bed, that's gonna cost money, right? So it's additional costs. What other additional costs are there with getting an apartment or a studio? What additional costs? Huh?
Water.
Most times you're not gonna have to pay for water when you're renting, only when you're owning a home. So water, we're not gonna put it in the equation, but we're gonna put electricity, right? You gotta pay electricity, right? So on average, an electric bill is gonna be what? Did you say 125? Fantastic. Yeah, because we have the TV on all the time and we're playing music and dancing and all that stuff, right? Yeah? Okay. So this is electricity. Sometimes you gotta pay for cooking gas. Not necessarily heating gas, but cooking gas. Sometimes you pay for both, cooking and heating, and it becomes more expensive. Gas can be very expensive. So a gas bill will run you what?
80, 90.
Say $80, because I like round numbers like that. I like even numbers. Okay, so you have a studio, you just got the light turned on, you got your gas turned on. What else is there? Cable, right? What's the average cable bill? In what world? What do you got? RCA? I'm paying 153, man. Let me get your number so I can call you for mine. Okay, $60. Let's go with that. Okay, cable. Everybody needs a cell phone. What's the average cost on a monthly bill of a cell phone?
35.
35? You got Metro PCS? It's more than that. 35? Huh? I'm gonna double that to 60. I think AT&T has a special right now for $60. I don't recommend AT&T, by the way. All right, so we have some essentials in the household, right? But what are we missing here that's very important that we cannot live without? Ooh. Well, you know, you know, with the cable, we got the internet included in there. Okay, so we can keep it easy. All right? Yeah, it is more, but we're just keeping it easy because I don't like math. So we need food. On average, you're gonna be spending about $300 worth of food a month. Fantastic. So we got basics. We're not covering the clothing that you're gonna wear right now because we're not gonna go into that depth. We're not gonna cover your shoes. We're not gonna cover anything, only the basics right here. But we do wanna cover a vehicle. What do you wanna drive when you become an adult?
I don't know.
You don't know? What about you? A Jeep? Okay. So I wanted a Jeep at one time, and I did some research on it, and I went to about 3 dealers, and they all said no to me. Your Jeep is gonna start around 30,000, 31,000, no, 35,000. If you're getting a Jeep Wrangler with a hard top, 43, 45. My payment was gonna be about $500, $600. So for your Jeep, $600 a month. Okay, nice one. What color? Black. But with a Jeep comes responsibility. What do you need with a Jeep?
Gas.
That's an insurance. Huh?
The plates.
The plates. The city sticker. If you're living in the city, that sucker is $100. But we're not talking about the city right now. So gas, gas fluctuates. It goes up and down. And like sometimes it can be, at one point it was almost $5. Okay. So for a Jeep though, and Jeep are not known to be, the gas, they eat up the gas. So I'm calling it, and I'm gonna tell you that you're gonna be putting, depending on where you work at too, because if you don't have to drive to work, then you're fine. But let's say you drive to work, I'm talking about $400 a month in gas. And the insurance, I'm just gonna put something cheap like mine, 131, I'm gonna put 130. Guys, do me the math. Somebody, please. What's the total?
Wow,
Will I tie my shoes?
that's a lot.
Come on. Give me a number. Anybody working on this?
2,455.
I'm sorry?
2,455.
2,455. Multiply that by 12, please.
4,910.
By 12 months?
Said by 2.
No, 12.
Said 12.
29,460.
29,460. You have to bring a year, 29,460 to have a studio that pays electricity for 125, gas for 80, cable for 60, phone for 60, food for 300. You have the vehicle, so it's 600 a month, gas for 100, and insurance 130. You got to bring in $2,455 a month into the household, which comes to 29,460 a year. Guys, with just an associate's degree, that's all you're bringing in. Just an associate's degree. There goes the Jeep. We cannot afford it. We gotta go get a Kia. Or ride a bike, maybe. Get a DD bike. Right? You already gotta start cutting down. And guys, you want to make way more than what you spend. The Department of Housing and Urban Development says that your rent or mortgage should not be any more than 30% of your income. Lies, because it's expensive out there. Most people are living above that. Most people, their rent or mortgage is gonna be 60 to 80% of their income, which gives you very, very little room to move. In case of an emergency, if you don't have the extra dollars, that's when you get in trouble. That's when you potentially end up homeless. Now, we're talking about, if you're gonna go get a bachelor's degree, we're talking about 28,000 starting, and a master's, 33,000 starting. But guess what? We as individuals, what we do is every time we earn more money, we make more expenses. We don't know how to handle the money situation very well. It took me 37 years. No, it took me more than 40 years for me to understand the need to have a budget. Because I was one of those guys that, I like shopping, I'm sorry. I go to the mall and I just go crazy in the mall. And then I come home and I'm like, where all my money went? And then I look in the mirror and say, well, you're wearing it. Why don't you eat that? Right? So you have to understand the importance of being able to live within your means, make sure you have a budget, and earn more than what you're spending so that in case of an emergency, you want to go on a trip, then you could do that, right? You could save some money, right? A lot of people don't save money. And that's an issue because if you don't have money saved, if something happens, my wallet got stolen, the credit card was in there, they jacked up $300,000 worth of purchases in it. Now I gotta fight with the bank to get that money back, and I ain't got no money to pay the mortgage or the rent. I don't have savings. That's how a lot of people get in trouble. That's why it's important that you really take the education very, very seriously to earn what you need to live out there. Now, that's your financial and your logistics. Now we're talking about, let's go on to the, while you're dealing with this and learning this pattern right here, you also have to deal with your emotional state as you're growing up, how you're processing information, and how that information translates into the decisions that you're making, right? So you only bring in $25,000 and you go and, I'm gonna go get a Jeep because I want a Jeep. And you're so happy, you go in there and you see that black Jeep and you're like, oh man, it's on. Put the top down and I'm gonna be riding down, let you drive. And then the bill hits you, bam, $600. Oh, that hurt. I gotta pay it. What do? Oh, let me take, let me wait on the electric bill so I can finish paying up the Jeep. I don't wanna lose the Jeep, but God forbid they take the electricity, right? That's what people do. Oh, let me just wait. Let me call the cable company and get a different package. Let me take Nickelodeon out so they can take $10 out, $10 out of the bill. And now I only pay $50, and the extra $10 I put it to the Jeep, so I can make my payment to the Jeep. But then you going out and you see a taqueria and damn, that looks good. I'm hungry as hell. So the $10 you save, you spend on about 3 tacos and a pop. See, those are decisions that you have to be mindful of because one affects the other one, and it can lead to a domino effect that can affect your whole life. That's why it's very important. You can actually pay for your own college education if you wanted to. Right? How?
Scholarship.
Scholarship. How do you get scholarships?
Grades, work.
By setting yourself apart from everybody else in a specific, defined action. That's going to make you visible in the eyes of those colleges and universities. Whether it's sports, music, dancing, even the class clown can make it. But you have to be good at it. And to be good at it, you have to practice. Right? Then you get your scholarships and you get your student loan. Right now, if you go out there, the government is going to give you, I've been away from that for a while, but the government is going to give you about $7,000 a year towards your college education. That's a FAFSA. But a college education a year can cost you about $40,000. So where is the rest of that money going to come from? A lot of us, we wait and our parents pay for it, right? But you really don't have to wait for your parents to pay for it. You don't have to put your parents in debt if you really set yourself apart and be unique in what you like to do. I was very successful to my college transition because I got my bachelor's in psychology and it was related to social services, dealing with people. So I got nothing but A's because everything I was learning in class, I was implementing it in the field of social services. And it worked out. So if you're gonna go for something that you're good at and that you like and that you're gonna make a living out of it. It's about a career, not about a 9 to 5. We got a whole bunch of sorry adults out there working 9 to 5 and they really don't put their all in everything and it affects everybody in the company. Because if we're supposed to be a team and you're not giving me your 100%, that means I got to carry your weight. Now I'm stressed out. I might drop the ball on something. That means somebody else got to come and carry my weight there. And it's just a domino effect all across. You see how we affect each other's lives in everything that we do and how we do it. Right? Any questions so far? Nothing stood out. Yeah.
What do you think would have happened if you went to jail and didn't have that support you had from your brother and your mother?
So more than likely what's happening now, which is people going in and out of the system. Because you don't have that support, you get to a point where you cannot cope. So your survival mechanism kicks in and you go back to doing what you're doing to try to survive. and then you end up in jail again. And that's why we got people that go in and out forever. My family was instrumental in me, especially my father, in me being able to cope with that environment. And I took on to writing a lot and writing poetry, and that helped me out a lot in learning about myself even more. Yes.
In the video, it said that you had a tattoo in your back, right? Do you still have it, or did you have it removed, or?
I had it covered. So that was a very interesting part of my life because I put the tattoo on me to scare people away, so that I wouldn't get harmed. And it worked out. But coming out here, I remember going to Wisconsin Dells with my kids, and I'm a water guy, so I want to jump in the pool. And I took off my shirt and I jumped in the water, and then I'm thinking to myself, well, what kind of image I'm projecting out? You know, are people looking at me? And it's not that people necessarily, their image of me matters, but it does, because if they're looking at me negatively, then they're gonna look at my family negatively. They're gonna look at my kids negatively, and I don't want that to happen. So I found this agency in Indiana that does that, and I was crazy to do it in the first place, and I was crazy to do it in the second place. But it's covered now, and I feel more comfortable going to the water parks and things like that. Yeah.
How did you transition to your first job and to how you are now with the job you have?
Yeah. So you know, when I got out, my brother worked for a nonprofit. So, and remember, I was away for a long time, so my family did not know what to expect from me. They did not know if I was gonna come out crazy out of there, because you formulate all these stories and you see TV and you think that it's crazy and everything. So fortunately I took computer classes in there when it was DOS system, and the DOS system is that green screen back in the days, and then with books reading, and then a job that I had in there that entailed computers. So they brought me in as a consultant at $500 every other week, administrative assistant. So I worked the front desk. But I learned so fast, the nonprofit world, you have to bring money in to serve people, and then you have to report to bring more money in to serve people, and you have to market out there to foundations so they can give you money to serve people. And I learned it so fast, and I learned this is the executive director gave me a promotion to resource development associate. The first time me hearing that title, resource development associate. Then I got really into learning about HUD, about fair housing, about homeless prevention, about affordable housing, all that stuff. And so I started networking a lot. Networking is very important. I started learning some key people that opened some doors for me. And I had a mentor too. I still got him, Jim Mabey, the greatest person ever alive in my eyes. This guy paid $60,000 towards my college education. And he's not blood related. He's actually an old white guy. But he's my best friend. I know his family. And so a lot of networking opened doors, and I went from administrative assistant, research development associate, case manager, housing case manager, program director, organizer, and then executive director. And then from there I went to, and throughout all of that, then I'm involved also in the community, right? So I'm doing a lot of volunteer work like this. I've been active in ceasefire marches, and I'm taking kids to college tours, everything to try to plant that seed for the kids to be able to have enough information to make the right decision and not make the mistakes that I made. And so becoming the executive director was the greatest accomplishment, because you're talking about I was responsible for a $1.3 million agency with 16 staff under me and 95 lives that depended on us to be taken care of. And that's on the nonprofit sector, that's like the highest position you can be in, that or a CEO, right, of a nonprofit. I cannot go into the corporate world because a lot of jobs would not be given to me because of my background. And that's something I carry with me for the rest of my life. So I'm gonna have a lot of difficulty as I move through life and I'm looking for a job. I've had nonprofits deny me a job. I've had nonprofits give me a job and then take it away when they find out I have a background. So that's it. That's something that's why I'm very, very intent in trying to get that message out there so that you understand how impactful a small decision can be for the rest of your life. But then I got tired of being executive director and I went to work at Roosevelt University where I got my master's. I worked there for 2 years and now I'm working as a operations manager. And I didn't know what operations manager was even in the years I was working in nonprofit. So what do? I manage 3 properties that belong to us. I make sure that I do preventive measures so that we have very little breakdowns of either property components like the heating, the air conditioning, plumbing issues. I manage a fleet of 4 vehicles that belong to the agency. I make sure that they get their stickers renewed. I make sure that the staff are taking proper care. I develop policies and procedures so that people understand this is your policy for transportation. This is what you do when you drive the vehicle. You cannot smoke in there. You have to obey all laws. So those are and some finance stuff. I creating some budgets and doing cost allocations and big people jargon stuff. But I love it because I'm at my age now that I don't have to. I don't want to interact as much with people as I used to. So I'm mainly on my own, working on the macro level of the agency as opposed to direct services where I'm sitting down with people. What do you need? This is who you call. Let's fill out this application so you can get rental assistance, or you can get mortgage assistance. Let's go ahead and hook you up with counseling, things like that. So that's how you progress. But it's been a fantastic journey. Fantastic. Anything else?
What influenced you to join gangs or to be a part of the gang?
So think about this. So I don't have, my father's not there. My older brother's not there because he got hooked up with a lady at an early age. So I don't have no male role models, right? I don't have no male role models, and I'm in the middle of gangland. So the friendships that I have are part of a gang. And I'm looking for a male role model in here to guide me. So I'm looking to them for guidance now. And as I'm looking to them for guidance, that makes me one of them by default, right? So you walk like a dog, you talk like a dog. Everybody's gonna say you're a dog. So if you're a dog, you might as well just join, right? So that's what led to the transition into that. Anything else?
How did you meet your wife?
So my first wife, I met her at work actually, and that was really early on. We worked together, but she worked on the career training department, and I worked in the housing placement department. Well, guys,
In the article, it stated that you went into school jail to protect yourself. Why did you decide to take that seriously afterward, to better yourself and learn?
Yeah, I was always good in school. I knew I needed to go to college, but nobody ever took me on a college tour, or when I graduated, never took me to the college itself and showed me how to apply and all that stuff. It's not really that difficult, but at that age, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is too much. Somebody's got to do this for me, and nobody did it. Having had such a great experience in there going to school, it opened some doors for me, and every time I accomplished something, it just boosted my self-esteem. So I became addicted to that. So coming out here, I knew that in order for me to stay out, I have a lot to fight for because my background. So I needed to go to an employer and said, yes, I have a background, but I have a bachelor's. Yes, I have a background, but I'm going for my master's. And that will always kill the negative and afforded me some jobs that I otherwise could not have had. So all around, it was very helpful, both emotionally and in the world of society, in how I interact with employers.
So the networking was really important. For those of us who might not know what networking is, what is that?
So networking is like, not, when you go to parties now, you're doing networking. You're going to parties, you're going with your friends, but you're meeting people. Well, in our world of professionals, networking is going to events or social gatherings in which other professionals get together with some libations and you get to know people and exchange cards, business cards. Oh, what do you do? Oh, you work at AT&T? I work for this nonprofit. Do you guys have a donation division in your company? Oh yeah, why don't we sit down, let me show you, come, let me introduce you, and that's how you start meeting people, and then you go look them up on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the adult version of Facebook for professionals. You look them up, you connect with them, and then that's how you build that network of positive people around you that are going to be your support, possibly in the future. Okay?
You went to prison for like gang affiliated guys. Were you like nervous going in there?
I was scared shitless, man. Yeah. 19. You're jacked away from your family and everything you know, and you're placed behind these huge walls inside this small cell, no bigger than the end of my arms like this. And you gotta live in there with some other person that you don't even know. At one point, they put a guy in my cell that just finished killing his mom and his girlfriend with a shotgun down south in Illinois. They put this guy in my cell. And I cannot do nothing about it because they tell me what to do. So yeah, you enter into survival mode, but you gotta be careful because you enter into survival mode and you come out here like that, you're gonna carry that survival mode out here. That survival mode is everybody's against me, I need to watch my back. That presents a problem out here because everybody's not out to get you. You don't have to watch your back unless you're doing something wrong. But if you're not doing anything wrong, my dad always told me when the people that are getting killed or the people that are fighting out there, they're involved in some activities that's why this is happening to them. Why is there a 14-year-old at 2 o'clock in the morning walking down the street or in a street corner? That should not be happening. What is it? It's just people put themselves in a position, and then where are their parents at? Why do you let your kid out at that time? It's just crazy to me what's going on. My kid's not allowed to. There's no sleepovers in my house. He doesn't sleep over anybody's house. I was sexually abused when I was a child, so I'm not gonna allow that to happen to my son. We keep it straight right here. You can go out. You're gonna be back on time. You're gonna call me, and him and I got this app that's called 360 Life, so I can tell where he's at all the time in his phone, and he can tell where I'm at, and he agreed to that for safety reasons, and I love it because when he's out there, I just look at my phone, I know exactly where he's at. It's all good. Okay? Thank you.
If you have any questions that you want to go up and ask him, go ahead and do that. I'll pass back your Cornell notes. If there's anyone that I didn't check your binders and planners, I will do that now. Okay, and so bring your notes back to class on Tuesday.